Today's podcast will be interesting. We have a Jewish man and a Muslim scholar here to talk about achieving peace and prosperity in the Middle East, where we agree, where we don't agree, generally having a pretty good, friendly conversation where we have some mutual acquaintances, friends, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. We come from different avenues in life, but I think we're very successful at what we do. We influence people. That's the bottom line. And that comes with the responsibility to influence humanity towards peace, towards progress, towards justice, towards charity. Otherwise, what's the point of it all? You know, I mean, we can enjoy our nice watches, our wealth, our cars, but if we're not leaving back a legacy that our children will be proud of, then we're not hitting our goal. So whatever we can do to achieve that, I'm all for it.
Definitely, man. Definitely. I'm here with Muslim lawyer Hassan Shibly. Thank you for joining, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Nima. It speaks highly of you that you know, we got into a little bit in the comments and you reached out and now we're talking and we need more of that.
Definitely, man. So today's podcast will be interesting. We have a Jewish man and a Muslim scholar here to talk about achieving peace and prosperity in the Middle East, where we agree, where we don't agree, but generally having a pretty good, friendly conversation. We have a lot of mutual, we have some mutual acquaintances, friends, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, we come from different avenues in life, but I think we're very successful at what we do. And we influence people. That's the bottom line. And that comes with the responsibility to influence humanity towards peace, towards progress, towards justice, towards charity. Otherwise, what's the point of it all? You know, I mean, we can enjoy our nice watches, our wealth, our cars, but if we're not leaving back a legacy that our children will be proud of, then we're not hitting our goal. So whatever we can do to achieve that, I'm all for it.
Definitely, man. Definitely. So were you born in the United States?
No, I was born in Damascus, Syria, the oldest living city in the world. I remember when my dad left for the US, I was just 4 years old. He came as a visiting doctor and I missed him dearly. I remember him coming back and waking me up one morning and said, we're going to America. Now, I was excited, but for the wrong reasons. You look at a map, every country's a different color. So I thought the sky in America would be a different color. Legit, I remember this when I was just 4 years old. And, you know, he woke me up. We flew over to the US, get home, and he's like, what drink do I want? I said, I want the green one, 7-Up. That was my second disappointment. He pours it out and it's clear. I'm like, man, everything in America is fake. And then I was, you know, we're talking about, it was the race for the White House. I'm like, these Americans have a crooked way of picking a leader. They have a race and whoever's the fastest wins. I'm like, that's no way to pick a leader. In retrospect, though, maybe it's not a bad way to pick a leader. We wouldn't have Sleepy Joe in office. But yeah, that came when I was 4 years old from Damascus, Syria.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, man. But you know, it's interesting, man. I came from, you know, you're from Syria. My family actually, they were immigrants from Iran, and
wow.
yeah,
we're both from the axis of evil, bro.
Yeah, yeah. I'm 43, man. I remember axis of evil as a popular jargon. You know,
right.
Iran was definitely. You know, most of my family is actually Muslim. They're Iranian.
Wow.
Yeah,
so how did it work out where you have a lot of Jewish family members and Muslim family members? Tell me about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I have from my mother's side.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have Cohen family, you know, that lived, you know, that was in Jerusalem.
Wow.
And yeah, so they weren't Ashkenazi. At one point they went to Iran, and then after, I would say prior to 1948, they went back to Israel before it was actually the state of Israel.
Wow.
And they lived in Jerusalem with, you know, alongside the Arabs.
Amazing.
And so, you know, I'm one of the few people that can actually say has family, you know, from Jerusalem or lived in Jerusalem, like literally, like prior to the state of Israel being created.
Sure.
And, you know, when I go, you know, even though I believe in the, you know, the state of Israel having the right to defend itself, I empathize in a way with the Arabs in a way that a lot of Arabs might not know, because when I go to Israel, man, I get extra security handled by death. Oh yeah, because I mean, I look like I could pass for an Arab.
Yeah.
I could pass for a Palestinian.
It's the good looks, bro. You get some.
No, I'm saying, you know, like I can walk in. Have you ever been to Jerusalem?
I haven't, man. I'm scared to go, bro. My sister went, and the IDF questioned her for like 10 hours about me. So I said, I don't know if I want to go. And I got a lawyer's mouth, bro. I'll talk back. I'll put them in check. I'm like, my ass is gonna get arrested if I go. So I've been enjoying the liberty here at home.
Nice, man. Well, so did you move here straight to Florida?
No, so I moved to Buffalo, New York. My dad, honestly, listen, he wasn't about to join the Ba'athist Party. In Syria, the government there is very repressive, very oppressive. My dad excelled. He's one of the top oral surgeons, and he teaches oral surgery. And he was just hitting walls because he wouldn't join the Ba'athist Party. They arrested him and his friends. They detained him. They were just there. What makes America such an incredible place to live is the freedom to critique our government, to join whatever political party you want, to disagree, to have conversations like this. You can't do that in many other countries in the world, unfortunately. So, my father, they loved his work. They offered him, green cards to bring the whole family. So we immigrated when I was 4 years old. We moved to Buffalo, New York. That's where I grew up, by Niagara Falls. And then finished law school. I always actually want to be an airline pilot. I love flying. In fact, just yesterday, we're looking at an airplane to buy finally. That's sort of my dream. I just love flying. But when I was 17 years old, or just turned 18, we were coming back from an Islamic conference in Canada. And we pulled up to the border around midnight. My mom's driving. She's a professor of orthodontics. My young siblings were sleeping in the back. And they told her to go in for a random inspection. So mom's like, what do you mean random? I'm like, Mom, random means they saw your headscarf. That's what random means. But I was kidding. I didn't think that would be the case. And I was shocked. When we walked into the random inspection room, bro, there was 40 other Muslims there. All Muslims. We were all American citizens. We were held for 6 hours. We were fingerprinted, interrogated, treated like criminals because we attended an Islamic conference. Meanwhile, non-citizens were in and out in 10 minutes. And the next day, I read in the papers that a man who killed an entire family in Canada made it across the border with bloody weapons in the car. But because he was a white Christian dude, they didn't check him, but they checked us. So that opened my mind. It made me realize that this government surveillance, profiling, Islamophobia, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't help our country. It makes us less safe because you're going to miss criminals that have nothing to do with us. And it makes us less free because when you feel the government's targeting you because of your religion, you're going to be less inclined to represent yourself and be proud of who you are. And I believe that's the great thing about America is like we can all express our different faith, our values, our identity, get along, make money, change the world together. Very few places you can do that. So that was a turning point in my life. I decided to switch from being a pilot to going to law school, finished law school in Buffalo, and then moved down to Florida to run a civil rights organization, which I grew to be one of the biggest American constitutional civil rights organizations in the US. Did that for 10 years. And then afterwards left and opened up my own law firm. There's 8 of us. And we do just run of the mill, all the legal work for anyone. We have a diverse team representing diverse people. We make good money. We help people. And we do a lot of charity work to give back as well. And it's been a blessing.
Oh, man. That's you mentioned this thing about the airport. The 2 occasions that I went to Israel, I got pulled over by the IDF. And this last trip, I was really looking forward to going to Israel. As a Jewish man, I felt like, I left New York for about 3.5 months, and I was about to go back. It was a trip for me to go to Israel, and I remember being really excited because I'm going back to my motherland where my family was, and then the IDF pulled me over. They saw my Torah, and they, obviously maybe that didn't have any effect. I don't know, but they really approached me as if I was a Palestinian, an Arab, and that I was looking to perhaps attack. But whether I had the Quran or the Torah or the Bible, it shouldn't matter. Honestly, I don't think. I got pulled over, and then when I went downstairs, there was a downstairs. The only other person on that entire flight that was detained or questioned or, pulled aside, was a dark, I assume Jewish or Palestinian woman. And I don't know if she was Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, but she was dark like me. We were basically the only dark ones. And, so then I basically was told after I basically had to take my clothes off and stuff like that, basically.
Really?
I was basically told about 5 minutes before, we're going to take your phone.
Wow.
We're going to take your belt. We're going to take your iPad. At that point, I didn't have a lock on my luggage. And now I do, but not forever I do. But back then I didn't. And my phone was the only way I was able to pay while I was abroad on that trip, because I didn't have another card with me. And for some reason, my phone was working, but not my debit card. Long story. So I was in a situation where if they took all of my personal property, they put it away. When I get to Ben Gurion, and someone steals it, I'm completely devastated at that point, right? So he said to me, bottom line, I'm going to take this, I'm going to confiscate this and give it back to you, or you're not going to get on the plane. I'm like, listen, sir, there's no way for me to be able to pay for anything. I don't have luggage, and I already know I'm going to get pulled over when I get to Ben Gurion. You know, long story short, he took everything. I went on the plane while I was escorted by an IDF soldier with an AR. I get on El Al. I'll never fly on El Al again. I get on El Al. I'll never give a penny to El Al. I get on El Al, and then they walk me on the plane as if I'm a terrorist. That's, you know, excuse my language, but that's, and this is a trip, mind you, that I was excited to go to as a Jewish man. My homeland, where my grandma's family, you know, lived, you know, and you know, that was one of more than one situation. I remember once having to go to the bathroom. It was in Tel Aviv. The guy with the gun didn't want to let me go inside to go, you know, just use the bathroom for a sec, because my dark skin. So the reason I say this to you before we get into it, Hassan, is because my grandfather, who married a Jewish woman, his middle name was Muhammad. You know, Muhammad, born in Iran, great man. I looked up to my grandfather. So the reason I say this is the idea that I would ever have any bigotry, or I would stand by any bigotry toward Muslims. It's furthest from true. I'm not one of these guys that's like on social media right now, clout chasing all of a sudden.
No, I don't get that. I mean, from what I've seen, and there are things I disagree with, but you seem to be calling for peace and people to go exist. That's from what I've seen. I don't suppose anyone's a bigot, and you don't even need to explain that to me, brother. And I think this dialogue is so important. So I actually commend you. Because you did the gentleman thing. When we had a few comments disagreeing, you reached out, and I was actually surprised and happy. Did you reach out first, or I reach? I think you did first, right? If I'm not mistaken.
No, because you put a little comment. You did a little poke. You poked the bear a little bit. But
I did.
But then I saw your comment, but I was like, no, you know what? He's an attorney. I was like, I could probably have a good intellectual conversation.
No, I respect that. And I would have messaged you for some reason, and this we shouldn't assume. I'm just like, man, this is a big guy. He's out there. He's doing things. He probably won't even see my message or respond. But honestly, it touched my heart that you reached out, and now we're here having this great conversation. More people need to do this. This is so important. You're not going to reach peace on a global scale if these kinds of conversations don't happen.
Well, you nailed it. And the thing is, man, is like, just one last thing here. I just want to say, you know, my grandfather's middle name was Muhammad, and one of my cousins was a mullah in Iran.
Wow.
So I have a lot of Muslims in my family, you know, like this notion that I would ever stand by the bigotry. It's completely false to what I believe in, or the fact that I would approve of any Palestinian baby being murdered. It's nowhere near my heart, man. And I don't think this issue is so black or white, where it's one or I don't think it's so binary like that, man. There are people like me in the middle, you know.
I think there's a lot of people where we agree on the end goal. Look, I think if we get to the heart and bottom of it, I don't think you or I want another Jewish or Palestinian, Muslim or Christian child killed. Regardless, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, children shouldn't be harmed. Women shouldn't be harmed. Non-combatants should be harmed. Heck, we should even try to keep soldiers out of harmed ways. You know, I think we agree on that. Sometimes the difference is how do we get there? And I think that's where the conversation needs to happen. But that's not always the case. But I'll tell you, I speak with a lot of people, and some people genuinely just don't care about Palestinian deaths or civilian deaths. And I don't think you represent that. So I think the fact that we're on the same page where we don't want to see another innocent soul harmed speaks volumes. And now we have to work at how can we get to that point. But not everyone's there. I mean, it's scary. I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric all over, saying let's flatten Gaza. Oh, they elected Gaza. They elected Hamas, so they deserve what's coming. It's like, bro, that's what bin Laden said. Bin Laden said Americans elected their politicians that invaded our land, so they deserve what's coming. And no, we reject that. You don't harm civilians. It's never okay to kill civilians. And I think you and I agree on that.
Do you think? So I'd like to ask you a few questions, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get spicy. Let's do it.
and then I'd love to discuss some of the, and then, before we get off, I'd love to discuss some of the charity work.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Really some amazing things.
Appreciate it. We gotta do something together, man.
Yeah. Yeah, we meet.
Let's do it.
Soon. Yeah, we'll meet soon. Hopefully, inshallah.
Amen.
So okay, so here we go. All right. So do you think, and I say this as a Jew, I ask you as a Jewish man, do you think that now the Jewish people are using white American Christians to do their fighting by appealing to their nativism and xenophobic ideas, by showing how the migrants, for example, the National Geographic magazine shows migrants as the new face of Europe, the new Europe. Do you think that the Jewish Zionist far right are using nativism, as Nick Fuentes would say, to appeal to white Christians to do their fighting?
That's a great question, man. Didn't see that come, bro. Yeah, that's a great question. Look, one is, and you first you said the Jewish people, then you said Jewish Zionists. So one is, I do make a distinction generally between the Jewish people as a whole and then those that are Zionist leaning. And I know some Zionists say, no, it's one and the same, but at the same time, I got a lot of Jewish friends who say it isn't. So, I like to differentiate. But look, I think the pro-Israel lobby will do whatever it takes to garner support for the billions in aid that they're getting. And I think, frankly, it's the American, war profiteering companies that profit from this. So I think, look, I don't think this is a conflict about religion at the end of the day. I don't think this is a conflict between Muslims and Christians. I think it's a conflict between a state. The states always, whenever you have a state and a military in power, they always want to preserve it versus the locals. Now, listen, when it comes to the locals, you got Muslims, you got Christians, and you have a lot of Jews that stand with us in support of the Palestinian cause. So I sort of see the conflict a little bit different. I don't see it as a Muslim-Jewish conflict. I see it as a state conflict with the locals. And this happens in America. I mean, even America has issues between police and the people they police. There's always conflict whenever there's power. At the end of the day, it's about land. It's about oil. It's about gas. It's about resources. It's about who's profiting. So we send billions of dollars to Israel. And then Israel, what does it do with that money? It sends billions of that back to our weapons manufacturers. So there's people that are making a lot of money off of this. And they will use nativism. They will use racism. They will use whatever they want, But at the end, it's about people making money. I don't think it's about a kingdom of heaven. I think it's about a kingdom on earth. How can we have the kingdom on earth? Because you're not going to get a kingdom of heaven if you're a Muslim and you kill a Jewish child, or if you're Jewish and you kill a Muslim child. That's not the way to get to God. It's not about that. And I think the people on the ground, they're being played, they're being taken advantage of. Honestly, I think the average Muslim, the average Jewish person on the ground, they have a lot more in common than they do with the leaders that have billions and are profiting off of this, Do
you think that the leader, have you heard about how, or what do you think about the theory that the leader of Saudi is actually crypto Jews, that they're actually Jewish, they were tribal, and they were Jews?
Listen, I haven't looked in that, and I don't even like that conversation because it's almost as if to say that, oh, it's bad to be Jewish, and I'm not even going to buy into that whole narrative. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I have my disappointments with Arab leadership. I do, just because I don't feel like they're doing enough in a non-military aspect to protect human lives. For example, I think if Israel knew and America knew that they were going to get oil cut off if the bombing continues. See, I'm just against bombing straight up. I mean, I don't think you can accidentally kill 10,000 civilians, of 6,000 of whom are children. I don't think the bombing helps. I don't think the bombing makes Israel safer. But I shouldn't have to make that argument. So for me, it's a sufficient of an argument that 6,000 kids have been killed, and I don't want to see more kids dying. But for the pro-Israeli view, I have to also argue, well, hey, it also doesn't make Israel safe, because it doesn't. I mean, you're going to have a new generation of people that will hate Israel to the death. How does that serve Israel's interest? You can't bomb your way to peace. But I don't think the Arab states are doing enough to get peace. I don't frankly think they care. At the end, they just care about their seats and their wealth and their power. So again, I think the average person on the ground, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, has a lot more in common. It's us, the people on the ground, versus the people at the top controlling the so-called, matrix, as Tate calls it. They have their interests, we have ours.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, one could make the argument that October 7th was what provoked Israel. There was innocent Israelis, women, maybe kids, that were murdered, raped, beheaded. But one could also make an argument to say they've been provoked for decades.
Right. So thank you.
Oh,
You hit.
right, right. Yeah, hold on. So yeah, so then Israel comes back full force, not even full force, they didn't use nuke or anything, but somewhat much more.
They use the equivalent of multiple nukes. If you look at the tonnage and the destruction, 45% of homes in Gaza about a week ago were destroyed, according to CNN, or damaged, So but I get what you're saying. They use intense force.
I mean, there's over 1 million Palestinians now that are homeless.
Displaced, exactly.
Displaced, yeah. So think about this notion of, then they get attacked. Like when I see online people say, stop the genocide, innocent Palestinian babies are being murdered. I think that's wrong. I think though, the way we really solve this, though, in my personal opinion, is to acknowledge that, hey man, any disabled, and you've touched on this, but to not include the other side. And I think both parties are guilty of this, where an Israeli might say, hey, look, hey, these people were kidnapped. The Palestinian, pro-Palestinian person will say, hey, innocent babies are being killed. I feel like more people, if they really want to solve this problem, will say the death toll, if your death toll only includes Israelis, if your death toll only includes Palestinian, innocent women, children, or disabled people, or elderly people that were murdered, that's not a real, then you're saying you're taking one side. Both lives are equal.
Both lives are equal. The issue is I sense a different level of responsibility each side. So when it comes to the Palestinian side, we are not funding any military operation on the Palestinian side. We're not funding Hamas. So it's illegal to do so, obviously. It's just, we're not responsible for their actions. But I do hold Israel, and people don't like that. Look, we value human life on both sides equally, but I do give a different sense of responsibility that we have in the conflict, because we do fund the Israeli side, right? We do provide them the weapons, and there's laws that we have to abide by in the US. The Leahy law says you can't give weapons if you know they're going to be used against civilians. So our issue is, yes, both human lives are equal, but Israel as a power that is funded by the US and has a world-class military has to do things differently. It cannot do things in a way that leads to the killing of thousands of civilians. And you hit the nail on the head with this logic, right? So you have like people on the Palestinian side, they say, okay, well, Israel has been killing hundreds of Palestinian civilians a year. They're occupying our land. They did A, B, and C bad things, which Israel has done these bad things. So therefore, October 7th was justified. Well, then the Israelis, some Israelis are using the same logic. Oh, on October 7th, they attacked us, so our response is justified. And I think both sides need to say, wait, targeting civilians is never justified. It just isn't. We can't use that logic, that it's okay to target civilians. And that's why when I hear from, and you don't do this, but when I hear from others that are saying, well, you know what, they attacked us on October 7th, so our bombing is okay. I'm like, but bro, that's what the Palestinians said. The Palestinians said you attacked them October 1st and August and 2020 and 1990 and 1948. So their attack is justified. If we keep going back to justify present crimes, it's not going to lead us forward. We just got to stop the bloodshed. But the issue is this. I'll finish with this. Yeah. You can't have peace without also a level of justice. So the issue with Gaza in particular is, I was just watching a rabbi on CNN because she called out Biden, a well-respected rabbi, and she's like, listen, the Palestinians have been living in an open-air prison for decades in Gaza, right? They count the calories allowed. Israel controls the water that goes in. They do illegal settlements. So it's like, you can't treat people in like the way they treat you at the airport. When people keep getting treated as second-class citizens, they're going to start to hate. That's a natural reaction. Doesn't make it right, but it's a natural reaction. So to get peace, we got to change the policies. We got to just treat all people the same, regardless of their religion. I don't think you'll have peace unless that happens.
Justice is a prerequisite for peace, right? Yes. Like it's like that adage, or the saying. I agree on that. It's so what would you say if someone were to say to you this theory, that Israel took land where it was large, very low population, it was basically empty, and through their innovation, inventiveness, creativity, yes, they took money, but they also secured funding for the state of Israel. The two countries, the two states that have given the most money to the Palestinians have not been the wealthy Arab countries, have been Germany and the United States. this is according to the chance. I have residency in Germany and the United States. Yeah. So the chancellor of Deutsche Germany, Olaf Scholz, he said that the United States and Germany give more money to the Palestinians than any of those wealthy Arab neighbors. Basically, that's basically what he said, and I agree with him. Unless you have some evidence that I don't, because I think the wealthy Arab countries largely are playing along with the 27 EU states, Western Europe, and North America. They don't want to get involved, and I think that there was something to be said about Saudi Arabia and Israel about to normalize relations, and then like 2-3 weeks later, things popped off. Now, by the way, I want to say one more thing to anybody that's watching this, that will watch this, that not to say all Israelis agree. I love Israel, but to say that all Israelis agree with Benjamin Netanyahu is like saying all Americans agree with Hillary Clinton.
Right.
You know, it's not right. A lot of Israelis don't. I'm not in particular a fan of Benjamin Netanyahu. If you want to know the truth, he might not be the first, but I'm not living in Israel. But I just want to say that not every, and I don't think every Palestinian necessarily agrees, if it's true, that Hamas leadership, 3-4 of them, have accumulated a net worth, reportedly, of $11 billion. I mean, do you think that allegation is true? Do you think that is true, that the Hamas leadership has made about $11 billion added to their net worth? Or do you think
I don't have enough I don't like to conjecture. I don't like to assume. I genuinely don't have enough knowledge about it. But I think I agree with you in the sense that, listen, I think the Arab nations have a lot of responsibility on what's going on. Frankly, I just think they're aligned with American interests because they get a lot of benefit through their financial transactions with the U.S. and also the military agreements they have in place. But ultimately, listen, you mentioned something about Israel sort of establishing a land that was empty. Look, 1948, we need to take that into account. The Nakba, right? The first catastrophe. You had, by even Western accounts, 700,000 Palestinians driven from their homes. There's a great documentary called Tentura that interviews a lot of the original sort of soldiers that sort of helped establish Israel. And they talk about going to our villages and driving them out. We can't ignore the fact that a lot of people were displaced back then. A lot of those people who were displaced ended up in Gaza. So a lot of the majority of the Gazan people weren't necessarily born there. They were refugees from other parts of Israel-Palestine that were driven out. So we have to understand there was a problematic history. Now, how do I see the way forward? Honestly, and I don't know if it's a practical way. I just think it's the most just way, which is, the West Bank, Gaza, Palestine, Israel. I believe that it should all be one place, one land, like America. In America, you're Jewish, I'm Muslim, man. We go bowling together. We can grab hookah together. We can disagree. We can make money, and it's great. And you know what? I want to buy the mansion next to you. I can, and you can buy the mansion next to me. It's cool. We all have equal rights. I think equal rights is the key for peace. So if you had this one land where it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, Christian, or Jewish, you all get one vote. You all have equal rights, and the police are held the same accountability regardless of who the person is. That's the way forward. And that's what I want. That's how I see forward. And they did a study. So they did a study about what a one-state solution looks like. Unfortunately, when they questioned Israelis about it, there were too many Israelis who said one state means the Palestinians leaving to somewhere else, like the Sinai. When the Palestinians were asked, how do you feel about one state? They said, yeah, it's one state where Muslims, Christians, and Jews all have equal rights. And I think that's what the majority of Palestinians want. I don't know if a lot of Israelis want that or not, because the issue, if you have one state with everyone having equal rights, is if you count the Palestinians in the West Bank, the Palestinians in Gaza, and the Palestinians that are local, you're going to have about an equal amount of Muslims and Jews in the land. In fact, the Muslims may outpopulate a little bit, and then Israel may no longer be a so-called Jewish state. And I'm not against the idea of there being a Jewish state, but you can't have a Jewish state if the majority are not Jewish. And you can't deny people's rights, so you maintain a Jewish majority. So I think that's where the heart of the problem is, and I would love your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think about how my family lived in Jerusalem and before the state of Israel was created. So think about it. The Jews and the Arabs actually lived side by side.
Yes.
That's what makes this very unique. They're genetically, I am very similar to a Palestinian.
Right.
There's a reason, like it's like you could take 10 Palestinians, put them sitting next to me.
Who
It's
wouldn't tell
very
you
hard.
apart? Yeah.
Very,
If you
yeah.
grow out your beard, bro, I think you're my twin. You got the nice brown eyes.
Yeah, so like there's parts of me where I think about the Orthodox who talk about how we don't need a state of Israel, how it's maybe against the Torah. And I think about that. I think there's some good arguments there. At the same point, I do feel that Jews have been persecuted so much that it's important that there is a state that they have. But at the same point, I also think it's wrong if Palestinians were hit. I think that if we have a very far-right Israeli leadership that's passively provoking these people, and they're going out of their way to just make more and more settlements and go deeper and buy the homes and go under the tunnel, build a tunnel, go deeper and deeper in. We're provoking. Like my personal solution here, I think your solution is pretty good. It's one of the best solutions I've actually heard. But I think as the best solution would be the UN gets involved and the entire world looks at the evidence objectively, looks what Israel's doing, looks what Palestine's been doing, and then they help form a two-state, side-by-side neighbors that can be friendly, have a good relationship, like Denmark and Norway, Germany and Austria. They can live in a very nice way, because right now in Israel, we have Arabs, we have Bedouins, we have Arabs that fight on behalf of Israel, Arabs that fight on behalf of Israel against Palestinians. So I do think that there can be a side-by-side solution there, but I think there needs to be a third party involved, because
the problem. So I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you. The problem is the UN has gotten involved, and they've made like almost 60 resolutions condemning Israeli colonies, settlements, occupation, different things. And like America always vetoes it, So America's enabling. It's like America's the bad parent, okay? You have a child who's misbehaving, and instead of the parent saying, hey, stop that, America just keeps enabling it. So, and the problem is these politicians like Netanyahu, they take advantage of that and they push more and more settlements. So like, if you want a two-state, you can't have a two-state when Israel keeps building settlements in the West Bank. That would be the Palestinian state. And then how do you get those settlements out now that they've been built? And it just becomes so murky and messy. So I feel like Israeli leadership itself has been working against the two-state solution by allowing all these settlements into Palestinian land. On the flip side, I do think the just solution is a one-state democratic, that everyone's rights are protected, everyone has an equal say. That's really what we're calling for. And look, it may not be a Jewish state that gives special preference to Jews over others, but maybe that's okay. Maybe everyone should just be equal under the law, and Jews should be protected, and they have their holy lands. I mean, you look under Islamic rule in history, Jews and Muslims did get along, and like the Jews had their own courts, and they would go to Jewish court, and the Muslims went to the Muslim court, Christians went to Christian court, and like they coexisted. And I think we can do that again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, yeah, no, definitely, man. And so what would you? Yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree on that. There are a lot. So let's, like, if you were to look at the bigotry, of what's happening right now, that someone were to say the Zionists have made social justice a big issue, because by promoting the rights of other minorities, for example, an Orthodox or a religious Muslim person like you, a homosexual, transvestite, a Chinese American, an African American, by defending the civil rights and social justice of these other minorities, the Zionists, the Jews, are also free, and they're liberated, and they enjoy freedom. Meanwhile, in Israel, they're not doing that. The way they're promoting policies to push migrants into Europe. Now what's occurred is that the social justice is sort of backfiring on the Zionists, because many of these groups hate the Jews and hate Israel and hate Zionists. But I actually would say, I would take it a step further and to say that in the Middle East and in Europe and in North America, some of these groups from the Middle East genuinely hate the West. Now, I have a home in Germany. About 12% of that population is Middle Eastern. I think there's a lot of Turkish people in Germany who are law-abiding. They contribute to the economy. They've been born there. Their parents were born there. But I do think that there's Syrians and Turks, maybe Afghans, who genuinely hate their country that they're in, and they're just extracting the resources. Now, you can make the argument that me as a Jewish person, I'm also now appealing to the nativism of the white Christian, of the European, to do the bidding of me, someone who supports the state of Israel. But I do think that at some point, maybe this diversity, I'm starting to think maybe at some point this diversity is actually backfiring on everybody, man. There's people, but I don't know. That's what I'm talking to you. Like,
it's interesting.
I don't know.
It's interesting. Look, one is, okay, Europe does have a huge challenge right now with a lot of the new migrants, refugees. But the issue is Europe and America created the exact conditions for that problem to happen. You know what I'm saying? So, like, let's be real. We didn't need to invade Iraq. We really didn't. I don't think it was illegal under international law. There was no weapons of mass destruction. Saddam was a horrible guy, but there's a lot of other horrible countries too. It was about the oil. We know that. It was about Halliburton, Lockheed Martin, these companies that Cheney and others had invested in, making billions and trillions of dollars, which they did. You know, so we destabilized the region. That's what opened up the door for crazy groups like Daesh, ISIS to come into play and just start killing everyone. I mean, 97% of their victims were other Muslims. These guys were psychos, you know what I'm saying? So that's what opened the door. It's destabilized the whole region. Then Syria got destabilized. All these countries got destabilized because of our failed foreign policy. And the people could no longer live there. So they immigrated. Some were traumatized. Some had witnessed war firsthand. You know, it became a mess. I think a lot of the vast majority are people that just want, like me and you, to work hard, earn a living, have a good future. And there's probably some people that are very bitter, but I feel like it's our failed foreign policy that led to that. Number two is I'm curious as to who our elected officials in America represent, because I was looking at the data, right? 80% of Democrats support a ceasefire, but only 8% of the Democrats in Congress support a peacefire, right? 56% of Republicans support a ceasefire. And it isn't hard to support a ceasefire, because if you watch social media, you'll see how many Palestinians are being blown up every day. Like, clearly this isn't a good thing, right? It's not cool to have a Palestinian killed by an American bomb every 9 minutes. And like, we're seeing the carnage. Like, I walked home and my wife was crying, literally in the kitchen, just crying because she saw a video of a child blown up, and we have a 2-year-old together. So like, we feel like, man, what if that was our child? So 56% of Republicans support a ceasefire, but 0% of Republicans in Congress support a ceasefire. Why is that? Why is the disconnect? I believe it's because of the lobby and the special interests and the money that's bought out our politicians. And they'll use tools like nativism and other things. The other thing is, it's put us in awkward positions. So like Ilhan Omar, she's a liberal, progressive congresswoman. She's Muslim. I'm conservative. I'm traditional. I'm old school. You know, she was dancing in an LGBTQ parade. Like, we don't vibe with that, you know? And now it's like, but you know what? She's supporting a ceasefire. So do I support her? Do I not support her? I decided to support her because I just don't want Palestinian children being blown up. And so I support her call for a ceasefire. But I'm not cool with her dancing in an LGBTQ parade, because that's not the kind of morals and ethics that my faith represents. So now I'm getting hated by other conservative Muslims. Hey, why are you supporting her when she's too liberal? But I'm like, dude, because I like her position on not blowing up children in Palestine. And it's all a mess, man. It's all a mess. I think there's a lot of confusion. And at the end of the day, man.
Oh, no. To one question I have here. The idea that Israel is the reason why migrants have come to Europe and the Middle East and 9/11 happened. Let's say, I want to ask you this question. Let's say the theory is that 9/11 happened because of the Jews. The migrants attacking Europe happened because of the Jews. We could say because of the state of Israel, they've controlled it. All that's fine. Let's say I were to agree with you as a Jewish man. I agree with you. Let's just say. But here's where I counter that argument. History's a lot longer than 100 years, brother. If you were to look back 200 years, 2,000 years, 3,000 years, the Middle Eastern North African people have been invading Europe way before the state of Israel even created. I'd like to hear what you think about that.
So number one is, look, I don't think let me be clear. I don't think 9/11 or the destabilization happened because of Israel or the Jews. I think it's all the result of failed American and European foreign policy. Look, one thing that went viral recently, which I think is an important read. I never thought I'd say this, but Bin Laden's letter to America, it went viral. And he basically explained why they hate us. And I disagree with his logic. I disagree that the points he pointed out justify attacking civilians. It goes without saying. The Quran says whoever kills a soul, it's as if he has killed all mankind. You don't need religion to teach you it's wrong to kill people working in an office building or flying to see their loved ones. Like, that's horrifically wrong. So we disagree on that point. But his reasons of why America is hated were all factual reasons about America meddling into other people's countries. And frankly, supporting Israel's human rights violations of the Palestinians was one of those things. So look, I think at the end of the day, European colonization of the Middle East, which eventually set up the dictatorships we have today, even the Middle East, it's run by dictators. These are dictators that were established and propped up by Europe and the US to this very day. They don't look out for their people. You have so many Middle Eastern countries that are super rich, and a lot of the people are in poverty.
So you mentioned how about 56% of Republicans would want a ceasefire, about over 80% or so of Democrats would want a ceasefire, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you said earlier.
Correct.
What do you think about the theory, that Israel is in fact doing all the dirty work for the wealthy European and Western states like the United States by being in a tough neighborhood? The illusion is that the Jews, the Israelis, the Zionists are so powerful that they're causing all of this. I really believe, and completely you have the freedom to disagree. I really want to know your genuine opinion. Please speak freely, and I'm sure you feel comfortable to do that anyway, and you would anyway.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
But I actually believe that Israel they're taking the fall for what these other countries also want, which is a strong position of power deep in the Middle East, because you have Iran, and I watch people talk about Iran. I've been to Iran, I've been here. My dad leans towards pro-Palestinian. My dad's entire family was Muslim. I talked to him about this. I understand it. I think you understand. You and I have it. Like, you and I are from there. We understand it. So in a way that most people that are just watching this on social media have no clue. So other than what they've read. So this is what I want to say to you. I think this deep theory that I actually hold is that Israel is not that powerful as many people think. I'm saying this as a Jewish man who supports Israel. I don't think we're that powerful as we've gotten. I think the biggest psyop is that, in fact, we're way more powerful than we actually are. And I'll tell you, my wife is German. I live in Germany. Jews make up a very tiny portion of that government. When you look at the leadership of France, Germany, Italy, the British, and you look at all these 27 EU states that condemned Hamas, and you look at the United States, and you look at Australia, they want a position of power. They want a place in the Middle East, so it's not completely gone from some sort of Western influence, and it has a democracy. Now,
brother,
one last thing. I believe that this is not really so much about Israelis and Palestinians, like you mentioned, the working class. Maybe it's not them. I think at a high part of the mountain, it is in fact China, Russia, Iran versus the West.
Proxy wars.
Proxy
wars. Listen, I agree with you. And this question was asked, which is like, who's pulling the strings? Is it America using Israel, or is Israel using America? Look, I think it's a symbiotic relationship. I think there's a convergence of interests, and they both take advantage of each other where they need to. So it's almost like a partnership. And frankly, they each bully the other, and they listen to the other where they have to, and they don't where they don't have to. You know what I'm saying? So the way I see it is, you hit the nail on the head. I think I see Israel almost as a colony of the West, right? It's their base. It's their place where they can have influence over their strategic interests. So that's why Biden and others said, if we didn't have an Israel, we'd have to create an Israel. So we have sort of an ally. And, the funding for Israel, there was some funding before the 6-Day War, but when they saw Israel win the 6-Day War, America saw this was the winning horse in the Middle East, so they increased their support because they wanted to have that strategic, strong relationship with who they could have as their ally. So again, I do see Israel as a strategic interest partner for the U.S., almost as a colony, doing their dirty work, being their base on the ground. And then I think Israel, because they want to be, they do want to be there. The people want to be there. They claim it's their historical land. So they use that relationship to expand in ways America doesn't even want it to expand. So America wants it there, but it doesn't want it to necessarily have the, what do you call it? The settlements, right? But Israel uses its influence to make America overlook the settlements. And in return, Israel does its bidding on the ground there. So it's sort of a symbiotic, I scratch your back, you scratch mine type relationship. And sometimes there's red lines. I mean, you know, once Israel was going to give weapons or instructions or some technology to like, I think it was North Korea, and America said, no, that's a red line. You don't cross that line. And Israel complied. And then another time, America wanted Israel to not move forward with the settlements. And Israel said, no, we're going to do it anyway. For America, settlements isn't a red line. You know, there's not that many Americans that care about whether Israel builds settlements or not. So it's not going to pick a fight over it. But it will pick a fight over North Korea. So they both know where the red line is, and they both dance within that circle, you know, to their own advantage.
What do you think about the theory that even 2,000, maybe 3,000 years ago, the Jews were living on that land?
Yeah, so with you, listen, I do believe, you know, I mean, it's in the Quran, right? I believe that there was a time when the Jews came, the Palestinians were already there, and the Jews were given that land. But that's irrelevant to me. It's like, okay, even if that was your homeland 3,000 years ago, you can't come in with guns and force people out. You can certainly move there and coexist, as your family was doing, I think, before 1948, you know, and you could have Arab and everybody get along, but you can't go and force people. I think that becomes irrelevant the minute you take a gun and force someone else out. And that did happen at the foundation of Israel. And it continues to happen with the settlements. And that's why there's so much hate. What you explained to me about what you went through when you were visiting Israel, that actually helped me better understand why the Palestinians would actually pick up arms, because there's only so many times a government can treat you as a second-class citizen and treat you like you're inferior before you actually become what they're accusing you of becoming. You know, if you keep calling someone a terrorist and treating him like one, even if he wasn't before, he'd be like, you know what, screw it, I'm getting treated like one, I might as well become one. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that's what happens psychologically.
Yeah, you know what? I look at the Palestinians as my genetic cousin. So, you know,
we are literally cousins, Jews and Muslims. I mean, we're literal cousins.
Literally cousins. And you know, we've been put in this impossible situation where other countries are so involved. There's so much foreign meddling going on. When I speak with a Palestinian that's actually from there, and when I talk to a lot of Israelis, they don't necessarily have that magnitude of hatred that I hear other people who are not from the region have for this issue. And I think that that's a big part of what's going on. There's too much outside influence going on in this region. And I find it impossible that the Jews and the the Jews and the Arabs can't get along in that Jerusalem, for example, the same way the Danish and the Norwegians can. I just don't. I think they can have their own culture and their own identity, and they can get along, and they have, and Muslims and Jews have, and
we have historically. It's not an endless conflict. People like to paint it that we're always fighting. It's like, bro, we weren't. You know, in fact, there was a lot of times under Muslim rule where Jews and Muslims coexisted. In fact, when Saladin kicked out the Crusaders, Kingdom of Heaven, great movie, highly recommend it. You know, I don't know how accurate it is historically, but genuinely gives an accurate message of what happened. When Saladin kicked the Crusaders out of Jerusalem, and the Crusaders were foreign Europeans who invaded, and they bragged about making the blood of the Muslims up to the knees of their horses when they invaded. They killed a lot of civilians when they invaded. Saladin eventually conquered, kicked out the Crusaders. He didn't take revenge. He let them leave back in peace. And then he welcomed 70 Jewish families to move back into Jerusalem. You know, when in Europe, they were, the Inquisition, they were slaughtering Muslims and Jews. The Ottomans sent ships to Spain, and the first people they let on were Jews. They said, how come you're doing that? They said, there are citizens as well. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, whoever harms a Jew or a Christian living under Muslim rule, I will be the advocate for that Jew or Christian against the Muslim on the day of judgment. So we have coexisted. Right now, there's a lot of modern, I think, interests at stake. that are hiking things up. And I think to lead us forward in this conversation, I think what we need is America to start conditioning its aid to Israel, because you never want to enable bad behavior, and power corrupts. I mean, Israel saw that it killed about 10,000 civilians, 6,000 of whom are children. And America says there's no red line. You keep doing it, it's going to start acting as a spoiled child against its own interests. More people are going to be killed. It's going to make peace harder. So I just think America needs to be more of an honest broker of peace. Set equal rules for both sides. Hey, neither side can kill civilians, and you can't say we're accidentally killing them, because if you keep doing the same thing and keep getting the same result, it's no longer an accident. You know what I'm saying? We need to have some tough conversations about having peace and more equal rights for everyone living there. And I think the majority of people on both sides are going to want peace.
So do you think the Holocaust happened?
Yeah. I mean, I condemn it to the strongest of terms, of course. It was horrific. But again, who was behind the Holocaust? Europe allowed the Holocaust. Europe enabled it. I genuinely look. Abba Iban, one of the leaders of Israel, he said Jews were treated justly twice in foreign land, now in America and before under Muslim rule. I genuinely believe Islamic rule, it had its ups and downs, it had its shortcomings, all empires did, but more than any other empire allowed everyone else to coexist. We didn't see that coexistence under Christianity. I mean, they were slaughtering both of us, brother. Islam teaches that all people have to have their rights protected. So yeah, I mean, we condemn the Holocaust in the strongest terms. But again, the shameful thing on Europe is they did the Holocaust, and then as retribution, they gave land that wasn't theirs to the Jews to make up for it. It's like, okay, Germany did the Holocaust. Maybe German land should have been given to the Jews, quite honestly. I know there isn't that historical connection there, but again, the Holocaust doesn't justify how Israel was created in a way that displaced a lot of Palestinians. And the other issue is the right of return, right? So right now, any Jew in the world can go to Israel and get citizenship and get resources and support, but the families that were driven out that were Palestinian can never go back. That's what I'm talking about, the double standards.
So, I mean, I just, I tell you, man, I just find it incredibly crazy that the Saudis can spend $500 million on Ronaldo and they're not helping this situation, and I've been to Emirates, you go to Dubai, you see how these people are living. And there's so much resources there, man.
I'm with you. Listen, I'm not trying to get banned from these countries, so I don't like to self-censor, but no, I'm with you on blame, on taking blame. I don't. So there's
accountability. Accountability is what I'm saying. There should be some accountability here. The same way the United States can help Israel, the same way I look at it as an abundance thing, not a scarcity thing. Okay, so Germany and United States can help Israel. Okay, cool. The British can help Israel. But man, there's so much money right now in Saudi and the Gulf that they can also help. It's an abundance, not a scarcity mindset.
I'm with you on it. Look, there's a couple things. So there's a way this argument is presented that I don't like, and you didn't do it. And there's a way that I do like, which is the way you did it. Others say, listen, they show a map and they're like, look, this is how big the Arab world is. This is Israel. Why can't the Palestinians go somewhere else? I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. That's like saying, America's this big, Florida's this big. Why can't Floridians go somewhere else? Like, if I'm in Florida, I want to stay in Florida. I don't care about how big America is. Same with the Palestinians. They're in Palestine, Israel. They want to stay there. They don't want to go to Saudi Arabia. That's not their country. So I don't like that argument. I do like this argument that, listen, I think the wealthy Gulf states can and should be doing more. I just don't think America wants them to do more, to be honest. I think America's holding them back, and I think some of them are just too interested in their financial interests, to take a risk. Why should they take the risk? They're living the most luxurious of lives. They don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah. Have you? Do you think that? And this is my last question here before we talk about your charity, man. It's do you think the Zionists were a part of attacking Syria?
For me, I don't know.
Speak freely, man. Speak. No. I know I'm asking you crazy. I know I'm
no.
Back against the wall.
I think no. I'm just genuinely thinking. Look, for me, it doesn't matter. No. For me, it just doesn't matter because Assad is a criminal thug that has killed millions of civilians, right? So here's the thing, and it's interesting because I, as a Syrian, have heavily condemned Assad and the Syrian government. I'm ashamed of my government in Syria. I am. I think some of those people are going to burn in the depths of hell. And so by that, I mean to say I am principled. I do condemn Israel. Like, frankly, I'll be honest with you, brother. I do feel a sense of hatred towards the state of Israel right now because of all the children I see blowing up. Like, my mind can't rationalize how we're still okay with this in 2023, But I'm an equal opportunity government hater. I'm Syrian. I hate Syrian government. Doesn't make me anti-Syrian. It doesn't make me Islamophobic, right? I hate what Israel is doing. Doesn't make me anti-Semitic. And I don't think you think I am, But there are people who try to say, oh, I'm being anti-Semitic. No, bro. I just hate governments that kill unarmed civilians. America's done it. Syria's done it. Most governments do it. And I'm a lawyer, right? My job is to hold governments accountable. I love the land. I love the people. But I'm not down with killing civilians. I don't care which government does it. And I'm an equal opportunity condemner. I've condemned America. The solution is, well, if you don't like it, get out of here. No, I love it here, bro. I think America's one of the best places in the world to live. But I'm not cool with all of their coups and foreign policy and CIA operations. Like, nah, those don't serve the American people. They serve special interests. So I condemn what Syria's done. I condemn what Israel's doing. Heck, I condemn even a Palestinian who might have killed a Palestinian, a Jewish child.
Would you condemn a Hamas member if you saw him hiding behind a woman or a child in a school?
Oh, absolutely. If he's hiding behind that, I would. But I don't know. So here's my thing, though. I don't know that they're doing that. But I have videos of Israeli soldiers hiding behind Palestinian kids. It's a fact. And that's why, in my opinion, is like, I really think Israel is one of the biggest, like projectors. Like, anything they've condemned the other side for doing, I see them doing the same thing. And I'm like, and our politicians are just too hypocritical to condemn. I think that Israel needs to be condemned for what they're doing as well. And I just don't see the equal opportunity condemnation. There's plenty. Everyone condemns a terrorist attack. We all do. But I also condemn a military attack where I know it's going to kill civilians. And I don't see that happening,
Yeah, man. I'll tell you, if I saw the same question I asked you, if you were to ask me, do I think if I saw an IDF soldier raping, beheading a Palestinian girl, I would be the first to defend that Palestinian.
Amen. Amen.
The same way you said in your faith about attacking a Jewish or a Christian and you're Muslim, right? And I feel the same way, man. If I saw an IDF soldier, absolutely. Because when I see a lot of the dark-skinned Jewish guy, family was in Jerusalem. If I'm walking in Jerusalem and I see a Palestinian girl being hurt, that could be my daughter too.
Exactly.
My daughter looks like she could be Palestinian.
That's it.
So it's impossible for me to watch those videos.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing to you that you may be surprised. You may be surprised, and I want to say this. When I'm talking to other Jews, when I'm talking to Israelis, you might be surprised that most Israelis, when there's no Arab in the room, they genuinely do want peace with the Arabs.
That's good. And
they genuinely, I'm telling you, like, I say this with sincerity. Most Jews, when there's no Arab in the room, specifically, I make this context of there's no Arab in the room.
Right.
Most Jews, they're not with the killing of innocent Palestinians, man.
Good.
Yeah, they're not. Good. And I think this thing zooms in and out. I don't know.
Whoa! Hey, I love it.
I don't know how it does that, but I've sent money to Palestine because I have a kid that I look at like a little brother. He's a Muslim. He's an Arab.
Oh,
he lives in Ramallah. He works on my team. Oh, he did. Now he stopped, but he's still like, he's like a little brother to me. And him and I have some pretty candid conversations about it. He clearly favors Hamas over what's happening with Israel, but he went to school with the Jewish people. He went to school he has Jewish friends.
Right.
And I don't feel he harbors that extremist point of view that you would think all Palestinians do.
Right.
When you go to Jerusalem, and I hope you go one day.
Amen. We'll go together, brother.
Yeah.
We'll both get set in that room.
Yeah, that'd be pretty amazing. But I'm telling you, there are a lot of Palestinians. I could think of a place in Jerusalem, for example. I walk in there to get some food. This place I stayed in Jerusalem, for example. And when I go there, I see Arab, I see Jews, and they're side by side. And there's a lot of good examples of, let's say, a hospital where there's Palestinians and there's Jews working side by side.
Right.
And I don't think most people have this hatred, man. I don't.
No, I agree with you. Listen, I am against anyone. I mean, anyone who hates Jews because they're Jews, X. I will come with them with the Quran and the Hadith and religiously shame them on their position. And if they want to twist some quote out of context to justify their position, I'm going to go double hard on them because they're being dishonest. We all have one God. You can't honor God if you don't honor His creation. And by that token, I also don't think. Listen, there's a lot of hatred towards Israel in Gaza, absolutely. But I don't think it's because Israel is Jewish. I think it's because it's just a military power that's occupying their land. If Israel was Christian, atheist, Hindu, they would still hate them. And that's what we have to understand. This isn't a religious conflict in that end. It's just between people who just want to live. We do want peace, but we're not going to get that peace. If we go back to conditions on October 6th, before the October 7th horrific attack happened, that still wasn't going to lead to peace. You were still having too many Palestinian children dying in Gaza because they don't have access to clean drinking water. And Israel controls what goes in and out of Gaza. They just need more rights fundamentally. You can't keep denying people their rights and expect there to be peace. It's a recipe for disaster. And I mean, Netanyahu's government in particular escalated that, So we need more of these conversations. We need more Muslims and Jews to talk realistically. And let's start pushing. Look, the reality is we don't control Hamas. So we don't even need to push Hamas. We've already done whatever we can as America towards Hamas, which is blacklisted them as terrorist org. But Israel is our ally as a country, and we do fund them. So I think we can influence them to take a path towards peace. Because I don't think the path they're on right now is going to lead to peace, quite honestly, brother.
It's hard when Russia and Iran aren't cooperating too, though. I mean, if we're like, I know you study jurisprudence, you're a lawyer. Yeah. You have an ability to have that cognitive dissonance, right? You have cognitive dissonance like on steroids. You're able to see really both sides of that argument. So I said, perhaps I'm flattering you to get you to agree with me.
Your charm is working, brother.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if we're really going to have an honest conversation, it's hard to have an honest conversation to say, hey, Israel's ally is held accountable, but the Palestinians' ally is not held accountable. I'm Iranian. I have an Iranian passport. Yeah. I literally have an Iranian passport. I have Iranian citizenship. My dad has he got me Iranian citizenship. I mean, when I went to go see my dad about a week ago in Canada, he took me to an Iranian halal place before he made his lunch, which was like lamb chops. It was an Iranian meal, but I'm just saying, like, I've eaten halal. Like my grandma was praying, like a traditional Muslim woman. Like when I see that picture in the National Geographic of the migrants, and that's the new face of Europe. And I understand a lot of nationalists will get angry when they see something like that, but that sort of looked like my family who came from Iran. So, I empathize a lot with what's going on. I just think, I think that the way you say about having equal rights, I'm with you. Yeah. And I just think the same way we could have equal rights for the Arabs, the Christians, the Jews, the Muslims, Jews, and the Christians. I think it's important that if we're holding an ally responsible, hey, Iran and Russia are included in this discussion, because as long as
I'm with you.
I'm
with you. But again, the only difference is like
Iran Russia, and the United States hate each other. They hate each other.
They do, and we're not. I think I'd be having a different conversation if I was in Russia. Although maybe I wouldn't, because I'd be afraid I'd end up in a gulag. Who knows? But the idea is this: I'm an American, a proud American citizen, live in this country, pay my tax dollars here. So I'm going to focus on what I can influence and control, which is my government and where my tax dollars are being used. I'm with you. And I think the Iranian people, the Russian people, they also have a responsibility to the extent they can to push their governments towards peace. I got issue with Russia and their propping of Assad, who's killed, literally. My cousin was killed in Syria, millions of civilians killed in Syria. I got issues with that. But I've put more effort actually on the Palestine issue and Israel than Syria, because again, even when it comes to Syria, it affects me personally. Like my heart bleeds for Syria. I can't go back, man. I haven't been there since 2011. I love that country. I miss it. It's been destroyed. But I know America isn't outwardly supporting what's happening over there. Russia is, but I'm not Russian. The reason I put more effort on the Israel issue is it blows my mind that my tax dollars keep being used to blow up kids with Israel. at a push of a button. It doesn't need to happen. I mean, even if they want to go after Hamas, well, that's what special ops are for. And you know what? If more soldiers have to die, so be it. It's better to have 100 soldiers killed in special ops than 10,000 civilians. But the problem is they don't value all human life equally. If they did, the reason Israel's taking the approach it is because its military leadership doesn't value all human life equally. If they did, they would take a different approach.
I want to ask you. I'm going to record some. It's going to be like a trailer. Maybe I can put it on the.
Let's do
it. I'll edit this part out.
Yeah.
Be like on like on like a Twitter and
yeah.
Maybe it's just like a trailer of what's coming. You know.
Let's do it.
I'm about to ask you a question. All right, 1 second.
All right.
So, do you think that? So a lot of Palestinians have been hurt. Let's say how many? 11,000.
Around 11,000 by conservative estimates, up to 20,000 by other estimates.
Do you think there's selective outrage because about 1 million Muslims right now are in China in indoctrination internment camps, but there's no public outcry about that?
Thank you for bringing that up. I'll tell you, within the Muslim community, we have been heavily advocating. Khalid Beydoun, who's been one of the most prominent voices on the issue of Palestine right now, has actually just published a book, and it was on what's happening on the Uyghurs. In fact, he has a Uyghur woman on the cover. What's frustrating for us is we haven't gotten the global support against what China is doing. China is running concentration camps, literally persecuting, torturing, killing, even harvesting organs of the Muslims in China. The difference is, again, America doesn't support China, so there's only so much impact we can have by protesting here. But America does support what Israel is doing, so that's why I think people are putting more of their effort on this issue.
Wow, man, that's a good answer, man. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, if Israel, even though significantly, it dwarfs in comparison, man. 11,000. You know, a lot of people hate, that, when I hear someone like I've did a podcast with Nick Fuentes, and his hatred is visceral for Jews in general. But the thing is that they harp on the fact of 11,000, like you're saying, let's say for example, Palestinians that have been hurt. It dwarfs in comparison. It dwarfs in comparison to 1 million Muslims.
The problem is, though, I'm going to just guide you on this one a little bit. Sorry, my friend. But the problem is, like we mentioned earlier in this conversation, 1 million Palestinians have been made homeless. And that's not a little thing, because it isn't just losing your home. They literally may die of starvation, disease. They don't know where to go. They're like pushed up against the border. So I don't know if it dwarfs. I think they're both just very abhorrent situations. I think the problem with China is it does so very systemically, and it's getting away with it. And it's insane. And we need to do a lot more on that. We need to do more on that. I'm tired of seeing the suffering in this world, bro. It breaks my heart. And honestly, I'll tell you something, it strengthened my faith, because it just reminds me, this isn't our real home. If this life was the real life, I don't think God would allow any of this to happen. I think we're here for a moment, literally a moment compared to the eternity of the hereafter. And God is seeing who we are. Are we people who stand for peace, for justice, for humanity? Or are we people that don't care about that and are willing to shed blood because we're racist or ethnocentric, or we want to make profit, we want to make money? I think God is just giving us opportunities to show him who we are. So I've grown strong in my religion, because otherwise this world will break you, man. I think it's enough for a sane man to lose his mind to see everything that's happening. I think it's all been normalized. Like all this bloodshed has been normalized, and I don't think we fully processed it. Like, I think there's going to be generational mental health issues as a result of this, or we're just going to lose our humanity altogether, man. It's scary, but I find peace knowing that there, I believe in a hereafter. I believe that the souls go beyond, and I believe we have to answer for how we spent this life here. And that brings it to the other thing, which is what got me into the charity work. We got to work to have a positive impact in this life, because we're not going to be here forever. So
you helped. Speaking of charity, man, just to finish this on a good note, it was a good conversation, man. I really enjoyed it, by the way.
Man. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you having me on.
Really enjoyed it, man. And on an intellectual, just on a human, I'm a man of faith. I pray, at least twice a day. I pray to God. That's and awesome. For me, when I say God, I say it in 3 ways. I say it, Allah, I say Hashem, and I say God. So the way my mind thinks. And my grandmother, I remember hearing her say a lot, and for me, when I hear the Quran, the recitings, I feel very comfortable. I feel like it touches my soul. And I say this as a Jewish man, again,
Beautiful.
who does support the state of Israel. And I'm making this very clear, because I want to say is that not all people that support the state of Israel have a disdain for Islam. And it's not that black or white, man. It's not. There's a lot of people like me that do want to have peaceful coexistence. And there are a lot of Jewish people who do feel bad about what's going on. And I would like to think that one day your ideal vision comes true, where the Jewish and the Muslim are together praying, as friends. They're doing their own prayers, but they're in the same area, and they're able to be friendly the same way the Norwegians and the Danish are able to be friendly as neighbors. Now, that's my last point. Now, I wanted to ask you, and please add your last point as well. It's just my question.
No, by all means.
My question to you is, and it's cool that, a Jewish guy, Muslim guy, were able to have a peaceful conversation. I think if there were two people I'm not gonna call you and I moderate, but I think if there were more reasonable people, reasonable, and I'm talking about with Benjamin Netanyahu's team and Hamas's team, I do think if there were people a little bit more reasonable and a third party, and they have an obligation to be empathetic to the other person. Like that's a requirement, or you're not on that team, and you're not in that, and you're not in that conference room. If an Israeli can't look at what the real grievances are, and if a Palestinian, they don't, because you're just making it worse. But I think if there's guys like us, there's 10 guys like me, 10 guys like you, and we're just sitting out having a conversation, I think a peace would come. But then I also just think it's foreign powers that will never want us to do it.
Yeah.
But I do think if it's 10 Jewish people like me and it's 10 Muslims like you, and we're sitting at a table and we're breaking bread together, I do think that in my mind, there's no reason why the Jew and the Muslim can't live side by side peacefully.
Absolutely. And that's why we need more of this, and to find peace and a just peace. Because what I appreciate about you is you also recognized, a lot of the things that we have grievances with, the mass bombing of civilian populations, the different treatment. When I proposed this idea that everyone should have equal rights, you supported it. So these are important things. I'll be honest, man, when you reached out and wanted to do the podcast again, I didn't know how it would go. I had no idea, and I'm so grateful that we did it. I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity. And it meant a lot that you reached out and we had such a fruitful, healthy conversation, a meaningful, respectful dialogue. We need more of this, and hopefully it's just the beginning, my brother.
Yeah, man. Inshallah, man. Inshallah. I'm very curious here. So I understand Andrew Tate helped you, and you distributed 75,000 meals in Africa. Is that right?
Enough.
Yes.
In one go, it was enough food to provide 72,000 meals that we did. And Andrew Tate covered about half of the cost of that. And then the other half was covered by someone who was inspired when he saw Andrew doing it as well. So it's been incredible. I'll tell you, so I ran a nonprofit civil rights organization for about a decade, and very personal thing, man. But, I'll be frank, went through a very difficult divorce a few years ago, man. And at that time, I pretty much almost lost everything. I was very much committed in the civil rights, human rights, philanthropic work. My ex-wife, who me and her are on great terms right now. In fact, she just last week published her public apology for what she did to me at the time, bro. Because bro, people took advantage, and she had the worst lawyer who gave her the stupidest advice. I mean, she got this toxic feminist bug, that told her to do all the wrong things. So she literally filed for a restraining order. The judge denied it. I did nothing. Literally did nothing. The judge denied it. The media published that she did that. They didn't publish the judge denied it because she had no grounds for it, right? She called Child Protective Services. They themselves told me, hey, bro, it's clear she's just being emotional. She's jealous you moved on. She's jealous you're killing it in life. She just, trying to get at you. And so they cleared my name. But when I was going through that difficult period, there was a period where I felt like I was losing everything. And my healing was, in my tradition, it says, if you want God to help you, you got to help others. As long as you help others, God will help you. And, you know, at the time I was looking at potentially losing my kids, losing my home, losing my career. So I said, man, I gotta find meaning, I gotta find purpose. And I saw a video of how people were living in very remote parts of Kenya. Like they were literally living in mud huts. You know what I'm saying? They walk miles to get water. And I just made a prayer. I said, God, let me help them. And I spoke to my friends. We got 40 grand together like that. We booked our tickets and we flew out. And the communities we visited, we transformed. We built schools, we built orphanages, we built water wells. We have an orphanage that supports almost 200 orphan girls and isn't just a danky small place. It's like a whole campus. And when we built a boys orphanage, the same, you know, for just a few $100,000. And we saw how far our money would go there. I mean, $1 would provide a kid breakfast, lunch, and dinner, an orphan. You know, $50 would cover the salary of an orphan caretaker for a month. So I started going year after year and just doing this completely as a volunteer, just with my network, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars and seeing the project go from A to Z, seeing the communities transformed. It's been a blessing. And when I saw some of Andrew Tate's stuff, and I was like, man, this guy, if he and I work together, I feel like we can have such a great impact. So I literally made a prayer. It was Ramadan. I'm like, God, let me and him have a positive impact on this world together. Next thing I know, he followed me and he messaged me. And a few weeks, and I never asked for anything. And again, I don't take anything for doing this work. Next thing I know, him and his team start sending us money every single month to do the charity work, most of which you don't even hear about. So yeah, it was awesome. We were just in Kenya. We provided about 72,000 meals for the needy. And that was just from one of our projects. We got a lot of different projects going on. And I'll tell you, doing that charity work, it helped me be the best version of myself. It made me, you know, we have a prayer in our tradition saying, God, put the world in our hands, not in our heart. It made me realize how blessed I was, how much I have. And I found God's promise to be true. As long as you help others, God will help you. After focusing on this charity work, man, I got my house back, my kids back. I got on good terms with my ex-wife. You know, she even apologized. What I used to make in a year, now I make in a month. Every month, I make my annual salary from before I was attacked, before they tried to cancel me. When they tried to cancel me, it was the best thing that happened to me, bro, because it forced me to come back stronger. And I realized the importance of financial independence. So since then, you know, I've opened up my own law firm. There's 8 of us. I do real estate development. And as a side thing, I try to find every opportunity to use the wealthy network I have of my clients, real estate developers, others to say, hey guys, why don't we have an impact together? You know, we might make a few million off this deal. Let's build an orphanage for $100,000 while we're at it. Why not? You know, or let's feed, you know, thousands of people for just this much money. And it's been amazing. So we go twice a year to Africa at least, and we build long-term transformation. We're trying to help to bring these people out of the cycle of poverty. It's been a blessing, bro. To wrap it up, I feel like we're getting goodness in this life and goodness in the next by being of service to others.
I mean, considering, so you've had Andrew Tate help you, you know,
yes,
get
he's one of our, he just sent us $5,000 the other day. Last month, he helped us buy a charity truck. The month before that, he helped us provide meals to 72,000 people. He's one of our many supporters on these projects.
Did you ever think Andrew Tate would be one of your biggest charitable supporters, considering what you saw in the media? Or what do you think is the biggest lie the media has said about Andrew Tate, considering he's one of your biggest charitable supporters?
Dude, I've got it. So look, it's no secret I've been in touch with Andrew directly. I found him to be humble, honest, sincere, genuine, and really caring about humanity, having a positive impact. And look, I'll be honest, what I went through, because I went through a smaller version of what Andrew went through, right? For me, it never got to be criminal, but I was, bro, you know, he talks about first they try to cancel you, then they try to jail you, then they try to kill you. I definitely went through the first thing. I mean, they wrote the most horrific hit pieces against me, trying to get me canceled. And it was all false, and they knew it was false. So from that point on, and also I grew up as a Muslim, I was always called a terrorist in the media. So it's like, I've never trusted the media. So honestly, when I saw the media attacking Andrew and I just heard what he speaks directly, I knew it was BS. You know, it was just very clearly a political attack against him. You know, they don't like the impact he has. They don't like the impact he's having. And I've got to know, and frankly, most of the charity work he's helped fund, even directly with me, it hasn't been out. I haven't tweeted about it. He hasn't even asked me to. I haven't even necessarily spoken about it. The guy's genuine. I could see the love in his heart to have a good impact. And I think his message is so important. Let's be financially independent. Let's work hard. Let's not, you know, comply with the rules of the matrix that teach you to get a minimum wage job and work 9 to 5 for a boss, for someone else. Like, be your own darn boss, be financially independent, live life comfortably, and give back. That's a powerful message, but I think it's a message that would disrupt a lot of the powers that be. So yeah, man, the media is BS. And I think my own experience, both as a lawyer, but also as someone who's been targeted, helped me see right through the BS. And I'm glad I did, because we're having an impact together. And I got a text, by the way, somebody wrote an article, Hassan Shibly goes poverty pimping in Africa. That was literally the article. You know, and I'm like, listen, you can question my intentions, attack me all you want. At the end of the day, when I see the smiles on those kids' faces and those orphans' faces and those women that were helping their faces, it makes it all worthwhile. I remember in one of the food distributions, that 72,000 meals, the bags we're giving the food in are extremely heavy, and we're carrying them and we're driving through unpaved roads. Bro, I was feeling physically sick and physically fatigued. I swear to God, I gave one of the bags to this one woman and she just prayed for me. That second, I felt fresh, as if I had just woke up, and with no tired, no fatigue. There's power in their prayer. There's power in helping others.
Yeah, I feel like in my own life too, man. You know, when I do what I feel like I was blessed to do to help people, I feel like it comes to me. Like other things, good things come to me. Man.
That's God's promise, bro.
I definitely had a similar relationship myself with the, you know, the Most High. You know what I mean?
Amen.
And then, yeah, man, I've had a similar. It's very interesting you say that. And then recently I've noticed that, but not necessarily with money, just in general. You know,
yeah, in anything. Yeah. Anytime God, the Prophet Muhammad said, God helps the servant as long as the servant helps others. The most beloved deed to God is you make your brother or sister in humanity happy, or you relieve them hardship, or you fill their stomach. And the help comes in multiple ways. He did say charity never decreases your wealth. So I've seen this. Whenever I give $1, I see it coming back tenfold to me. I've seen this in my own life. But it isn't just in money. It's in happiness. It's in success. It's in opportunities. You know, the Prophet Muhammad said, the merciful ones will be shown mercy by the most merciful. Have mercy to those on earth, and the one in heaven will have mercy on you. As you treat others, so you will be treated. It all comes back.
Hey, brother, it was a beautiful conversation, man. I appreciate you, and yeah, man. I think hopefully we can meet soon, man.
Amen. We'll make it happen, brother. God bless you. I appreciate it.